in Waterford, but cold. So you're all very welcome. I'd like to introduce and welcome Andrew Kennedy, who's the Professional Titles Development Officer with the IEI Ireland. And today's session, we're going to look at membership benefits, the joining process that will be involved, the different routes into Engineers Ireland involved, the application process and the interview process, and some questions and answers. I know Andrew is running to get a train as well, so if he scoots off, he's not dodging any questions. But I suppose how this came about during the summer, I was saying to Andrew, I had one or two of our master's students who were looking to kind of get their qualification, the professional qualifications, and they came looking to me, and I really wasn't too au fait what was involved. So I kind of had to do a bit of research myself. So delighted to say the help that Andrew gave me, the two students came back and they got their accreditation, and they were delighted. So Andrew, without any more delay, I'll pass over. I would ask people if they could put their microphones on mute, if that's possible, just to save any background noise. So thanks a million, Andrew, and thanks to Caroline for organising everything.
Exactly that, Angela and Caroline, thanks for organising this. I'm just in a lobby of a hotel, so hopefully the background noise isn't too overpowering for my presentation. I suppose in the interest of time today, I kind of will, for now, hold off on doing kind of anything on the joining process. But if anyone obviously has any questions about that, I'm more than happy to take them kind of offline. If anyone wants to, like in terms of joining Engineers Ireland, the benefits. But on the Engineers Ireland homepage, if you do ever get any queries from students inquiring about joining, there's a whole join now section on our website. There's a student section as well. So it's very user friendly, and we do offer free student membership, and that would lead on to then full membership as well. So I'm happy to take any questions about that at the end, but I said there is all the questions on the website there that are available. So I suppose while we offer chartered engineer as a title, professional title, we do also offer associate engineer and engineering technician. And I'll go through them all now kind of in a moment. But this is always kind of a good question, and probably a question that you're going to probably get is, why would you achieve a professional title? And this kind of green diagram there would kind of give you an idea of the main reasons as to why an engineer should achieve a professional title. But when we speak to engineers who have successfully achieved the process, those points in the top left there would kind of be those key pieces of feedback. So it's not only getting that professional recognition, but these titles are internationally recognized. So if, for example, someone achieves a chartered engineer title, we have international agreements with specific countries around the world. So with the likes of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, so that if they do achieve the title with us and they do go traveling abroad after college or for work, they can get that title recognized straight away within that country. So again, it's really offering students that global passport. So it's a huge advantage of achieving this, a professional title with Engineers Ireland. It's a peer-reviewed process. So you're really getting that badge of excellence and that seal of approval. And they're really getting that approval from their employers. And ultimately then, in most industries, it's a great way for those engineers to maximize their career opportunities. So the titles that we offer, as I said, we would offer engineering technician, associate engineer, chartered engineer, and then fellow, which is kind of further down the line. And depending on someone's educational background, you can see what the standard qualification is for those three professional titles there. So it's always good that kind of we're not just focusing in on chartered engineer, that we're speaking to other members and other engineers who have different types of qualifications, and offering them a route to a professional title as well. Generally, the application process is the same, just the level of detail increases, obviously going from engineering technician to associate engineer to chartered engineer, which I suppose is kind of considered the gold standard in terms of registered professional titles. But you see kind of here today similarities across all the titles and what's involved in the application process. And irrespective of what professional title an engineer eventually goes for, firstly, they have to be a member with Engineers Ireland first before applying. Secondly, as you saw there, they're going to have the prerequisite standard of engineering qualification. And when an engineer joins Engineers Ireland, their application for membership is sent to what's called their membership and qualification board, and that board determines their grade of membership, and then that in turn then is someone's route to a professional title. So it's not something that I decide or you decide or the engineer themselves. Every application for membership, as I said, is sent to this board. They meet once a month and they review every single application for membership. So it's a huge process that's involved. And depending on whether someone's coming from like an accredited Irish qualification, accredited EU, non-EU, even unaccredited qualifications, those who mightn't have any qualifications but have relevant years of experience, there's quite a variety of routes to membership. And then that in turn then is their route to a professional title. And obviously, we would always recommend that engineers they achieve 35 hours of CPD per year, and for a titles application that has to be in place for 2 years before applying. So we would always kind of encourage engineers to kind of start recording their CPD on the website through their membership portal now to gain into those good habits, so that when it comes to submitting an application, they have this bank of information ready to go, and it makes the entire application process just that little bit, not less painful, but I suppose more straightforward. So I'm not going to go into detail on each of these individual sections, but this just broadly maps out the pathway for engineer and technician, and it's really just to show you the similarities across each of the titles. So there's a career summary report in all applications. There's competency statements that have to be completed. There's a CPD section, as I said. All applications need 2 supporters, which I'll discuss in a moment. And then there's an interview process as well, which we'll discuss in a moment as well. So that's the engineering technician pathway. And then this is the associate engineer, and again, the exact same sections that need to be completed. But the detail that will be different here is the 5 competency statements, with the level of detail, as I said, increasing depending on the title that they're going for. And then just looking at the chartered engineer pathway on the standard route, again, they're doing the same details, but just the one difference here would be that there's 2 essays. So we're going to kind of use the chartered engineer process as an example, which really just to kind of show you the similarities across the other professional titles. So this slide can sometimes be a bit daunting or off-putting, just the amount of content on it. But mainly what I want to focus in here is just on kind of this particular side of things here, and I'll take you through it just so you're clear on it. So this maps out the chartered engineer application process, and there's 3 routes involved depending on someone's educational background. So there's a standard, there's a further learning, and there's an experiential learning. So taking the standard route first, this is for anyone who might have achieved their accredited level 8 pre-2012, or if someone has the accredited level 8 plus the accredited master's post-2012. If either of those 2 are someone's educational background, they complete, as I said, what's called a standard route, and standard route applicants focus on phase 2 of the process. And so phase 2 is what we're kind of going to look at here today briefly. Outlined in green, as you can see, is our further learning route. And this is just for anyone who has the accredited level 8 degree post 2012. So someone who didn't necessarily go on and do the accredited masters, they just have the accredited level 8. As I said, they're on the further learning route. And it's worth noting, the only difference between these 2 routes is that there's 3 additional essays that they need to do. That's the only difference. So there's 3 essays that are advanced engineering knowledge and understanding, research, and the broadening of expertise. So we get the question a lot, should I go on and do an accredited master's? It is entirely up to the applicant or the engineer themselves if they want to achieve the master's. But in terms of them altering their route, and that's the only reason they're doing it, I personally would say no, don't do it, because the only difference between these 2 routes, as I said, is that there's just 3 additional essays. So it's worth kind of just having kind of that knowledge to know kind of what the difference is. Outlined in yellow then is the experiential learning. Now, this is where engineers from a variety of backgrounds get funneled through. There might be someone with an unaccredited degree, they might have a level 7, or they may have already achieved the associate engineer title and they're on, they have those relevant years of experience, they'd be on the experiential learning. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on this route in particular, but experiential learning is split into 2 phases. There is phase 1, educational formation, and this in itself involved an application and an interview. And then once they're successful at phase 1, they move on to phase 2. Now, I run separate webinars that look at phase 1 on its own. So we really kind of make sure that engineers are fully kind of geared up with the necessary knowledge that they need. So All title applications are done through a member's dashboard. So they'll select my professional title. And if you ever get engineers saying, I'm getting this notification, it just means that they need to get in touch with us. And it more than likely means that they're on the experiential learning route. Generally, when they select this tile here, they'll be presented with an online application and it'll say Andrew Kennedy standard route, it'll say Andrew Kennedy further learning route, but the application will be directly on their membership dashboard. In terms just of resources and where you can point the engineers to, so Engineers Ireland's homepage is the registered professional titles. Everything that they need is here. So we have these discipline-specific competency documents. We have regulations that were recently launched. We have the guidelines for the 3 individual routes and the essay titles for the upcoming deadline, which change at each deadline. We've got podcasts. We've got a document that looks at the professional interview process. We've a video that looks at the role of supporters, and we've testimonials. So we would always direct members here first, find out what route they're on, download the relevant guidance notes, and really start utilizing those documents straight away. So this is what an engineer is presented with when they log into their dashboard. So just for an example, this is someone who's on the standard route. And if someone was on further learning, and they'd have an additional tile, which would be the additional essays. If someone's on experiential learning, they'd have different tiles. But if someone's going for engineering technician and associate engineer, they'd also be presented with something of similar format. So as I said, it's all completed directly online through a dashboard. In the bottom left, they can share their graph with their supporters. In the bottom right, when they go to formally sign off their application, they'll be doing so directly all on the dashboard. So we'll have a look briefly at each of these sections here now, just to give you an idea. I'll discuss the interview process in a moment. But those next 3 sections, so engineers are asked to fill out these sections so that if they get called for an interview, we utilize this information to match them up with their interview panel. So we also ask our volunteer interviewers to fill out these sections so that how the panel and the candidate have direct experience with each other. So again, really straightforward. Those first 4 sections are just simple tick boxes with, I suppose, kind of prudent information that we need from them. The table. And what I would suggest is if you're speaking to any engineers who are beginning the process, the guidance notes, and I was saying it last night at an event as well, the guidance notes literally tell the applicant exactly what they need to do. So more often than not, they haven't read the guidance note and they email saying, how do I do this table? And if you just open the document that they're on, hit Control F, career summary table, it tells them exactly what they need to do. So it'll say it's a chronological table, graduation to current date, and gives them an idea of what they need to do. So I'd always recommend that the candidate firstly familiarize themselves with the guidance notes. And then when they start each individual section of the application, they just review those documents to make sure they are clearly aware of how best they should be answering the particular section. So it's really straightforward. And again, the guidance notes take them through this particular section. One of the, I suppose, larger parts of the section is this 2,000-word career summary report. So this really, I suppose, fleshes out what they had in that table. So again, you're kind of branching out what you had in it. So it's going to be a report similarly in chronological order. And the main aim, I suppose, and the fundamental thing that engineers need to remember, I suppose, in this application, and it's where people fall down in the process, is that this has to be at the forefront of their mind, is that this is an application about themselves. And again, it was reiterated by volunteer interviewers last night at the event. Lots of the time where people fall down in the process is that they talk about what their team did or what their company did. But they have to remember that this is an application about their career. So they have to be showcasing significant engineering work they themselves were involved in. What were their personal contributions? What were the responsibilities? So they have to not shy away from using first-person terms and really honing in, as I said, on what their contributions were. And that's really fundamental across the entire application process, not just this particular section. And that last point, I'm sure probably you're all aware as well, it's a professional application. So any spelling errors, grammatical mistakes, they happen at every deadline. Applications are returned. So it is something that they need to be mindful of. A simple thing as well, but again, assessors and interviewers really are adamant that this is completed to 100%. So any acronyms, any abbreviations, in any section of the application, they have to be here in alphabetical order. Again, it's a point of reference for the assessor and the interviewers to refer to. So the 5 competences, as you can see on the screen there, these really, I suppose, form the main crux, I suppose, of the application. So the 5 competencies, as you can see there in their simplest form, they're the same for engineering technician, associate engineer, and chartered engineer. But as I said earlier on, the level of detail just increases depending on what title they're applying for. So candidates have to write 500 words on each of these competency statements. And you'll see here on this slide, it gives you an idea of how they break down each of the overall competency statements. So there's now a standard 4 sub-competencies within the overall main definition of what each of the 5 competency statements are. So in particular for this section, we would really be stressing that engineers utilize those guidance notes, utilize their regulations, and really kind of use feedback from their 2 supporters, which I'll discuss in a moment what their roles are. So by combining all of those, it should really give them a good idea as to what types of examples of roles, what types of projects they're going to be using, help them sufficiently demonstrate not only the main competence, but also all of these individual sub-competency statements. With CPD, engineers, I suppose members of Engineers Ireland should be achieving 35 hours of CPD per year. And when someone comes to submitting a titles application, they need to be showcasing that for a minimum of 2 years. And we generally ask them to go back 3, 4, 5 years, and they're hopefully only going to do the application once. So it's about getting as much content down into the application as is physically possible. Most engineers are more than sufficiently completing 35 hours. And you'll see in a moment kind of how what types of CPD that we have. The CPD table is really straightforward. There's a few different ways that they can fill it out. We always encourage members of Engineers Ireland to declare their CPD with Engineers Ireland each year. And when they get into those good habits, and when it comes to the time for submitting a titles application, there's an import link that pulls over all their records from their My CPD section into their titles application. Now, lots of companies, they might have offline documents, or they might have internal kind of recording systems themselves. They can also just add in the records individually as well. When the time comes, there's no problem at all with that. It's not that they have to declare their records with us. They can still apply for a title, we just add in those records manually. Or the third way is that if someone ends up working for an accredited employer, there's a different way that they can do that by adding in their records, which kind of makes it straightforward. So that's just kind of an overview of what the CPD aspect is like for the application. Again, as I said, you can see the amount of ways here that engineers can build up their CPD. So there should never be a problem in meeting that baseline figure. We would always suggest maybe kind of going for like kind of cherry picking examples from kind of different streams. You don't have to hit all individual 6 streams, but just don't put down, or we would encourage them not to put down 55 hours, for example, for a diploma. They'll be attending work-based learning, they'll be doing self-directed learning, they'll be at conferences, doing volunteer work. So it's about kind of showing that kind of holistic approach to their CPD records. So with the supporters, and this is something that I always encourage engineers nearly doing first. So I suppose the first thing would be that they become a member. Second would be they find out what exact route they're on to a professional title. They would download the relevant guidance notes and regulations. And then the next step would be securing their 2 supporters and then starting the process. So with all title applications, you need 2 supporters. We recommend that there are 2 chartered engineers. They can be chartered with Engineers Ireland or with another professional engineering organisation. The supporters, they have to be familiar with the engineers formation. So we cannot source any supporters for an applicant. They have to source them themselves. So they might be currently working with them. They might be kind of work with them in a different team, different company. They're all fine scenarios once they're familiar. And as I said, we would always encourage you to kind of secure them straight away, start working with them, identifying deficits, offer feedback, and getting that that kind of, I said, second and third opinion as they advance their application before submission. If someone isn't a chartered engineer, they can still act as an alternative supporter. provided they have that baseline title, but they need to be pre-approved by Engineers Ireland. Now, if anyone does have any questions, or when any of the engineers do have questions on the role of their supporters, there is a video on the chartered page of the website that they can watch, or you can watch yourself, and it answers kind of top level FAQs in relation to supporters. So with the interview, there is a document on the chartered page of the website, and it's just a 2-page document that looks at the interview process. So applicants could go for an online or an in-person interview. There's no benefit to one over the other, or right or wrong. It just depends on what suits the applicant. Usually 2 or 3 chartered engineers are on the panel, and once they introduce themselves to the candidate, straight away they're giving a 10-minute verbal presentation. We would always recommend practicing this as much as possible. It's a great way to kind of settle any nerves and kind of hit the ground running with the presentation and interview. Again, where people fall down in the interview / presentation is that they're again just showcasing what the company did or what the team did. For that presentation, you're really looking to get maybe like they need to maybe have like 6 to 8 slides showcasing those key roles, those key projects that allow them to demonstrate those individual 5 competencies. So they're clearly showcasing how their career currently benchmarks and is up to the standard of what a chartered engineer is practicing, the level that they're practicing at. So again, using first person terms and highlighting their personal contributions, all that sort of stuff. The remainder of the interview generally is around 60 minutes. And if someone's on a further learning route, it can be anywhere up to 90 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions on obviously this section and also all other sections now. But as I said, there is a document on the charter page. I can throw the link into the chat in a moment, just so you have access to it if there's any further questions on it. In terms of deadlines, just very briefly, 2 deadlines each year. On the left is January, which is the one we have upcoming next. It's always the last Friday in January. When someone goes for a January deadline, generally applications are assessed in the month of February, sometimes March. And then someone is told at this point if they've passed the assessment stage, but it can be anywhere from March right through to June before they're called for an interview. And if someone goes for a June deadline, again, assessments happen in July and August. They're told at this point that they've passed the first part of the process. But again, interviews can take place anywhere from September right through to December. So always simply last Friday in January, last Friday in June, generally with a 6-month kind of time frame from kind of start to finish being the max. Now, 2024, we had our highest number of applications in the last 10 years. So we're a bit behind. If anyone is aware of that, we're trying to work through a backlog. But generally, this is how the process kind of maps out each year. So look, obviously those emails you're free to use, but my email, I can pop it into the chat. It's just akennedy@engineersireland.ie. So if any of yourselves have any questions, obviously you can email me directly. But generally, with any kind of title questions from any engineers, we pop them through to titles@engineersireland.ie. If someone isn't a member yet and they're looking to join, they have to get their membership up and running first. So it's just membership@engineersireland.ie. So if you want to take those emails down, and yes, so it's just membership that you have to join. And once their membership is active, it's just titles@engineersireland.ie. So look, we're just coming up on 12:30. Hopefully some of those slides have prompted or answered any questions that you might have been coming to the presentation with. But if any of them cause any confusion, or if anyone does have any questions, I'm more than happy to take some kind of questions and answers for the next 15 minutes or so. Or I'll also put my email into the chat, but I'll just stop sharing now so I can just pop those details in here straight away.
That's great, Andrew. Thanks a million. Now, I don't see any questions in the chat, so if anybody has any questions they want to ask Andrew for the next few minutes, feel free maybe to take your mic off and kind of ask it there, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. But thanks a million, some very good information there, and it's great. And you're happy for us to share that as well and just to have it. Perfect.
That's no worries at all.
That's great. So just wondering, are there any, has anybody any questions? Yeah, Colin has a question there. Are you happy to ask it, Colin? Yeah, thanks.
Well, Angela, just to get the ball rolling
So,
on the
no.
questions and answers. And look, you may not have this data to hand, Andrew, but are there any engineering disciplines where the numbers have increased in terms of students or graduates looking for recognition? So typically, in my mind, I'd have always thought of civil engineers as going down chartered route. Has there been an increase in like biomedical or mechanical engineers making applications?
There is. I don't have the stats, but I suppose your big ones are usually like your civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, those ones there. And on just kind of what I think of it on the chartered page of the website as well. Um, as I said, we have those discipline-specific competency documents. So again, just to kind of touch on that, these were there are 8 documents across 8 disciplines that were combined with examples that engineers who successfully achieved a title submitted as examples for their competency statements. So they're kind of top-level examples, and they're on just the link I put into the chat there. You'll find 8 of them there. But in terms of kind of, we're always trying to branch out into the likes of, say, like pharma, med tech, those sort of industries. It's hard to kind of infiltrate isn't the right word, but try to kind of get in and find a key contact within those organizations who's looking to kind of champion professional titles. Outside of the kind of the typical discipline where it's required to have a professional title, it's hard to kind of gather traction there. But like I was down at an event here last night in Cork, um, and there was the likes of Biomarin were here, Stryker were here, those sort of companies who typically may not have been in the pipeline, but there's an absolute appetite for those industries and disciplines from even just a professional capacity from kind of their like a personal achievement. It mightn't be it mightn't lead to anything kind of internally within the organization, but engineers are looking to kind of promote themselves or kind of yeah, increase their skills. And also, a lot of people say that the application is a great way of kind of reflecting on their career and kind of having that kind of look back and having it peer reviewed and successfully achieved to the standard of a chartered engineer.
I think Joanne
yeah.
is there as well. Thanks, Joanne.
Yeah, looks like the camera slowly coming on there. Thanks, Andrew. That was really, really informative. I'm just thinking of a particular cohort of students that we have here in TUS, and that's our international students who are coming in with their engineering degrees. You may have covered this at the beginning. I missed the very beginning, but they're coming in with an engineering degree and they're perhaps doing a master's in something else. And I'm wondering, would you have much experience of kind of them applying for chartership? Is it common and are they getting it?
Absolutely. So, a few things to that. So, firstly, when we do our stats kind of at the end of the year end, or like in January for the preceding year, we do a breakdown of kind of what we would call global engineers. So, for 2023, out of all the new members who joined Engineers Ireland, 53% of them are classed as a global engineer. So that's someone who who graduated outside of Ireland and the UK. And that went up from 48% last year from 43. So it's a growing trend. So lots of those engineers are coming to Ireland. They're also based abroad, both working for a company who has their headquarters based in Ireland. So it's kind of a mixture, and it's fantastic. And because of that, we have what's called an experiential learning route. And so lots of engineers go through that particular route, maybe if their degree is unaccredited, but we're also part of a lot of international agreements with countries throughout the world. And so if they're signatories of those agreements, we would accept their accreditation. So like that could be engineers from India, UK, South Africa. So it's not just that we accept only accredited Irish qualifications. It's kind of we're part of like international engineering alliances, so there really is kind of lots of collaboration across all those industries. Now you could have someone coming from an Indian university and their course is accredited, so they'll be on a similar path to someone who graduated from an Irish accredited university. So every engineer is quite different, and that's why we kind of evaluate every single application on its own because of what course they graduated from, what year it was, what grade did they get. So there's always kind of a lot of moving parts to each individual applicant. So once someone becomes a member, we would generally ask them then to reach out to me, give them my member number, or give me their member number. And then I can directly see what their grade of membership is. And then that in turn then is their route to title. And then kind of hit the ground running then once we know their route to title then.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because they really do, I think, appreciate the accreditation or the possibility of pursuing the accreditation
absolutely.
when they're new into the market. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and last night as well, I think there's like 70 people down in Cork, and I'd say 25% of them or more were from all over the world, and all with an array of different types of qualification. And also, what I think of it, each year we run a Global Engineers series. So we finished it for this year, but we'll be doing it hopefully again next year. So we usually run about 6 or 8 events per year, and they're based around different nationalities, different countries, different regions. So we ran like African ones, European ones, Spanish-speaking countries, Asian, Indian, South American. So we usually run them from Clyde Road, and we would have companies who would bring staff over and have a stand at it. We'd have speakers talking about their experience coming to Ireland, joining Engineers Ireland, their employment opportunities. So it's great for those engineers from different regions to just network and kind of, I suppose, feel kind of some connection, that they're not kind of just in limbo, or that there is just kind of that warmer kind of networking opportunity, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. And definitely I'll be encouraging all the students to pursue their membership for sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and again, like a good thing, I don't know, like, and just on a side note as well, if you're kind of looking for people to kind of use, but if they use LinkedIn, generally everything on our organization gets put up on the LinkedIn page. So from like news articles, jobs, events in person around the country, and also like volunteering. If any of them are looking to volunteer with Engineers Ireland, the different regions, divisions, and societies would take their hand off, because we're always looking for volunteers to run events. It's how we kind of keep the organization going. So again, there's loads of scope for that as well, if they're looking to kind of get into that side of things as well.
Yeah, great.
That's great. Thanks. That was a good question, actually, Joanne, because we have quite a large number of international students. So, especially in the engineering side. So just wondering, are there any other questions from anybody? You've silenced us all there, Andrew.
Hopefully that's a good sign. That's not a slump.
I know, there's lots of good information there, and the links as well. So if nobody has any more questions, I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of the Association of AHECS. I found it very useful, our conversation during the summer. And again, look, you'd a good turnout here. It's quite a specific niche presentation today, but thank you. Your slides you've made available to us as well, Andrew, and we'll have Colin will upload the video on the AHECS YouTube section as well. So thank you very much, and safe journey back to Dublin.
Not at all. Thank you.
Thanks a million. Thanks everybody, and thank you.